A bitter north wind blew off the moors. It sliced through Keegan's thick winter cloak and shirt as he handed over his sword to the gate wardens. Faint moonbeams cast deep shadows across the weathered ramparts and frost-rimmed towers of Outer Cairn Keep. When the sentries were satisfied, he and his band were allowed to enter. They passed between the close walls of the tunnel running under the ancient gatehouse, and Keegan didn't breathe easy until they emerged in a courtyard on the other side, where another pair of guards opened the door to the inner keep. Bright light flooded across the snow at their feet. Tromping after his comrades, Keegan entered. Heat from the four great hearths wrapped him in a sweltering embrace as Caedmon, their war leader, led them to a table at the end of the hall. Keegan loosened his cloak as he took a seat under an open window and glanced around. This was his first peace meet. Warriors and housecarls sat shoulder to shoulder. At the other end of the hall, a long table sat on a riser above the rest. The 5 men at the high table were adorned with silver and gold. Their white fur mantles gleamed in the firelight. One of Keegan's comrades gestured to a venerable man wrapped in a black bearskin cloak in the center seat.
That's old Jevik.
The Alistar Thane?
They say he hasn't stepped outside of this big pile of rock in years.
Keegan took in the banners hanging on the walls, the rows of trophies and the hearths.
I don't blame him. This is a good place for an old man to rest his bones.
A cupbearer set down a double handful of mugs before them. Heads turned to the high table to see Thane Jevik getting to his feet.
Welcome, sons of Ergoth. I have called this peace meet to discuss the troubles that plague our lands.
Keegan looked around and saw heads nodding. Farms had been burned to the ground, men killed, and women and children taken away. Everyone knew from where the troubles came. He and his comrades had decided it was time to do something about it, and Caedmon had brought them here to find out if anyone else felt the same. The aged chieftain returned to his seat. One by one, the other Thanes introduced themselves. This took some time, as each attached numerous titles and accomplishments to his name. The last Thane was a powerful figure. Flame-red braids hung down his leather breastplate.
Many of you know me. I'm Cormac of the Ragerson clan, and I won't bore you with a long list of my deeds.
Everyone knew of the exploits of Cormac Ragerson and his Red Riders. His had been the driving force behind their country's march to freedom. But that had been years ago, before Keegan's birth. Thane Cormac looked around the hall.
But I will be the first to speak. We fought and bled to free our country. But now the ravens of war have come scratching at our windows again. Darkness lies heavy over our lands, and Leovard sits at the heart of it.
Taelish, the Thane of Othir, stood up.
You speak as if we can change things, Cormac. But this peace meet is a waste of time. Clan Evaskeen has grown too powerful. We must make an accommodation with them, or risk losing what we have left.
You, Othir, can go kiss Evaskeen's lily white horse if you like. But the Ragersons will fight to our last breath.
The contingent of men jumped to their feet and pounded on the tables. The other Thanes at the high table exchanged concerned glances behind Cormac's back.
Why fight alone?
Old Jevik peered into the crowd.
Who speaks?
When the hall had quieted down, the looks cast in the direction of their table couldn't be called friendly. Keegan swallowed the last of his ale as his captain stood up.
I am Caedmon Duarmic, son of Londane.
I've heard of you. Most of my fighters cannot decide if you're a hero or just a lucky fool. But only a clan Thane has the right to speak here.
2 men from Keegan's band stood up and threw back their cloaks to reveal white mantles underneath. Tongues wagged at the sight.
He speaks for Clan Indrig.
I see you brought a pair of yapping dogs with you. Too bad they're squatting at your heels instead of sitting up here with their rightful peers.
Go frig your mother, Cormac. I'm here to make sure you don't run off with the women when the talking gets fierce.
I see you, Duarmic. Speak your mind.
I asked why we should fight alone. If every man stands only for his own hearth and clan as we've always done, then we'll be split apart and killed, and our families taken as chattel.
I have heard enough. These fools are the reason Leovard burns our villages and chases off our people.
If we unite, we can defend ourselves and perhaps win a lasting peace for our country. Like the ones promised years ago when our fathers and uncles rousted the Nemeans.
Every man in the hall was on his feet now, shouting to be heard. Keegan couldn't tell what most of them were saying. In favor of Caedmon's idea or against? The Thanes at the raised table yelled alongside their men. Comarch bellowed something about the debt of Aragothic blood being repaid 100 times over, but Keegan lost the gist of his argument in the clamor. Keegan looked up to see that the ceiling timber shook. The flames in the fireplaces flickered and threatened to go out as the winds blew down the chimney flues. Keegan looked around, but everyone else was absorbed by the chaos ripping through the hall. Then the doors of the hall shook. Chairs fell over as the warriors turned.
The hunt.
When the doors burst open, a crowd of intruders with gleaming steel in their fists rushed into the hall. Everyone stood gaping as the interlopers pushed through their ranks, shoving the clansmen back. Keegan climbed up on the table for a better view. The intruders towered over the warriors in the hall, with pale eyes glaring from under bestial helmets, fashioned like wolves' heads. They carried axes and hammers of dark iron and broad shields. Keegan knew them at once from stories he'd heard from his father. Northmen. Keegan watched them with awe, but then another entered the hall, and a sick feeling uncoiled in his stomach. Clad from crown to foot in a shell of black steel, the new arrival stood even taller than the other Northmen. Keegan clenched his hands into fists. He knew this one from stories too. Wherever he appeared, people died. The clans called him the Beast. A pair of figures entered behind the steel-skinned giant. The man had a narrow build and a lean face with features some might call refined, and he wore enough guilt to bury a prince. But it was the woman beside him who stole Keegan's attention. The way she moved and the curves under her sheer black gown made his blood boil. Her skin glistened like wet silk. This was no ordinary woman. Upon her arrival, the hall fell into perilous silence. Preceded by the Beast, the man and his lady walked arm in arm down the center of the hall, and the clansmen fell back before them. In that instant, Keegan understood who these people were. The man had to be Eric Eveskeen, the Duke of Leovard. And that meant that the lady at his side was the witch, Sibel, Queen of the Dark. Keegan looked away from her eyes, not daring to meet them again, even from this distance. They walked up to the Thanes.
Eveskeen, this peace meat is for patriots of Aragon.
Who dares to say I'm no patriot?
The Duke turned, and the large medallion around his neck swayed.
Am I not Thane of one of the oldest clans?
Cavemen pushed through the crowd.
I name you traitor, Eveskeen, even if no one else has the stomach to do it.
Jevik, it seems your house is infested with vermin.
I am a free man of Aragoth. Again, I name you a traitor. A traitor to this land, which you have sown with blood and fear. A traitor to your own people by the company you keep. While others fought and bled for their country, you rolled over like a whore and let the enemy in.
Come, Eric, I told you they would be intractable.
I would have saved you. Remember that.
Keegan watched with an uneasy feeling as the Duke and Lady departed. They halted on the threshold and turned around. Keegan expected some parting words, some base insult. Instead, the candles and hearth fires went out, plunging the hall into darkness. Even throughout all the chaos, Keegan noticed a strange blue light flashing above his head. What it illuminated below was like a vision from hell. The weaponless clansmen used table legs and eating knives, anything they could find, as they fought for their lives. But the axes of the Northmen rose and fell like threshers' flails, reaping a harvest that washed the floor in blood. Not 3 paces away, a warrior was cut down by a Northman. Keegan went for his belt knife, but the killer moved away to find another victim. Samnus and Overt led the band into the mayhem after Keegan. Keegan started to go after them, but remembered his war leader's words from before they entered the keep.
No matter what happens, Keegan, you must survive. You must tell the clans what you've seen and heard this night, or we are all lost.
Keegan located Caveman in the fray. Dark patches of blood matted the war leader's leathers as he fended off the attacks of a Northman with his bare hands. Then Samnus and the others arrived and bore the invader to the floor. Keegan smiled until the crowd parted as if drawn back by invisible strings, and a tide of dread filled his chest. The Beast approached. Steam rose from the giant's armored hide as he strode toward Caveman.
Look out!
But his comrades couldn't hear his warning above the cacophony. Then the crowd surged, and he lost sight of the fighters. A moment later, he glimpsed a body on the floor. It was Caveman, laid out on his back like a dead man. Bile flooded the back of Keegan's throat as he stumbled down from the table. He couldn't catch his breath. The air was thick with the stench of blood and sweat. He turned, looking for a way out, and spied the window above his head. He leapt to catch the stone sill. As he pulled his upper body over the ledge, his shoulders caught in the narrow casement. A frantic wriggle broke him free from the stone's embrace, and he pushed into the empty space beyond. He landed in a snowbank. Then he was up and running across the frozen fields.